Friends, welcome back from the long July 4th holiday weekend. Just before we wished our country a very happy birthday, we received a present from Deutschland, the 2015 Porsche Boxster GTS. We filmed her up to July 4th, and then we put her in the garage on July 4th. No, not because she's German, but because if you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, you know I do an annual gig here in the California Republic. So if you are local or if you're going to be in the California Republic for next July 4th, highly suggest you join us. It is a July 4th gig like none other. But I digress. Let's get back to the car. So while we work on the full episode, let's go over some highlights here and answer some of your questions. First, the car. So we said this is the GTS version of the Boxster. Now, if you've been following Porsche for a while, you know that many years ago they used to offer a GTS as like the swan song to a model right before they change it. They gave you more stuff, maybe a little more power, made it a special edition, then they changed the model on you. But if you've been following Porsche over the past couple of years, they've changed that strategy where they offer a GTS as a model designation starting mainly after the first year of a car comes out. So there is a Panamera GTS or a Cayenne GTS, like we went over to Sweden and we drove the Cayenne GTS on a disused airfield in February in practically the North Pole. If you have not seen that episode, highly suggest you do so. But we are here for the Boxster, and really the same can kind of apply to the Cayman. So there's a Boxster, there's a Boxster S, and there is a Boxster GTS. Think of it as good, better, best. Now, this one, there are some dress-up bits. So look at the front of the car, looks a little bit different. The lights look a little bit different. Yes, there are turbo wheels, we will come back to this. The interior, notice there's some suede in here, but an interesting note about the interior, a lot of the stuff you see here can be fitted to like a Boxster S as optional. But what can't be fitted to a Boxster S as optional is 15 extra horsepower. There's also some extra torque, so you get 330 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque from the same S's flat 6. So, couple of things here. Does that make this a fire-breathing monster? Absolutely not. So we've been looking at those, like the pantheon of sub-3-second cars like the Nismo GTR, the Corvette Z06, or Porsche's own Turbo 911S. But does that make this car a slouch? Absolutely not. It's spending time with this car, as I've had over the past couple of days, where you really understand this car's reason for being. That's what we're going to cover in the full episode. I'm not going to tell you what it is here, but the only hint I'm going to give you, you know I spent a lot of time over the past 6 years talking about a specific brand of car that I've owned many of. That's kind of what this thing is going for. We will cover that in the full episode. Now back to these wheels. So a little bit behind the scenes here. This was supposed to be a 911 Targa GTS with a manual transmission. I was incredibly excited for this car. But our friend Frank from Porsche, he very kindly called in advance and said, hey, bad news. The 911, we're going to get it to you, but it's still somewhere on the Atlantic Ocean. But what I have is a red Boxster GTS with turbo wheels. Would you like this? Of course, I am not going to turn down Frank's very kind offer. So that's why we have this here. But the turbo wheels, if you follow Porsche, you know these are optional. And they look fantastic on this car. But they are optional, and I know you guys love to play the options game. I'm not even going to waste my time asking you if you want to play the options game with this car, but what I am going to tell you is this. It is going to be probably the most interesting contestant we have. I'm not going to tell you what the total of the options are, and I'm not going to tell you the total price of this car, but I am going to say, as a percentage of the overall car, this is going to be one options game you don't want to miss. So we will have a full episode coming towards you and an options game of this car. Now with that, let's answer some of your questions. Last week, we covered not one, but two Scions. And we got two really interesting questions. So we had CD-ROM Ringo asked a really good question. He watched both the IM, which is the Toyota compact car built by Toyota, and then the IA episode, which is the subcompact car that is designed, engineered, and built by Mazda. He asked, are there going to be TRD parts available for the IA? And I'm like, you know what, that's a fantastic question. I kind of answered in the comments, but really let's unpack this because the car is not built by Toyota. If I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, they're probably not going to offer TRD parts. But I am definitely going to take this question back to the Toyota folks and find out because it does have some merit. That said, a little bit behind the scenes of that shoot, we drove both of those cars back to back at the same program, and Toyota very kindly offered a TRD IM. So there are parts available for the IM, the Toyota designed, engineered, and built car. And they had ones with the coilover and the exhaust, all that kind of stuff. We may come back to you with an episode on that car. Anyway, thanks for the question on that, CD-ROM Ringo. Now, while we're on Scions, Jake Legg, he brought up a really good question in relation to the IA episode. Now, the IA, we spent a lot of time talking about compression ratio on that car because it's got a traditional inline four-cylinder that is a small engine. It only puts out 106 horsepower. But what was so unique about that engine is it has 12-to-1 compression ratio, and it mainly arrives at that because the pistons are shaped differently, which changes the shape of the combustion chamber, which gets you this higher compression ratio, and we found that that car was a fantastic car to drive. So you would look at a car like this, it's by nature, it's got a flat six engine, not a very high torque design, so whether it's this or like a Subaru, 273 pound-feet torque, not huge, but this has direct injection in it. They fool around with the tuning of it. So they're able to get a lot of horsepower out of this car, and that's kind of what Scion did there too. But Jake's question was, well, what happens when you don't have good quality gas? And it was a fantastic question because that really affects the compression ratio. So we spent a lot of time talking about this already in the Cadillac ATS-V episode. There were two engineers that were assigned to the ATS-V. Porsche has them as well. Toyota and Mazda have them as well, where these guys, their entire job is to make sure, in this case, it delivers 330 horsepower reliably, whether it is at high altitude, low altitude, bad gas, good gas, higher octanes. Like, for example, if you were in New York, you can go to like gas stations that offer 94 octane pump gas, but here in California, it's 91 pump gas. And at that, we're currently on the summer blend. So these guys, to the best of their abilities, because it's not an exact science and there's some things you just can't control, but they're able to control and reliably deliver 330 horsepower. In the case of the Cadillac, 464 horsepower. In the case of the Scion Mazda, it's 106 horsepower. That's what these guys are tasked with doing. Engineers that are focused on making sure the variable of cheap gas doesn't affect you as much. Get it? So Jake Legg, thank you very much. Great question. Now, there was another question that came in. We're going to move off the Scion plantation and move to the Nissan Maxima. No, I'm not going to answer the question about the CVT. We all know about that. But I am going to say, so I spoke to Vish recently, and I spoke to Vish's boss who runs global product planning for Nissan, the guy around the world. And they are reading your comments. And there are a lot of comments on those films right now, and thank you for them. So they're paying attention. I would argue let's keep the comments going because we may win this battle because the guys who need to know about this, they're taking your feedback and actually sharing it in the discussions of shaping future cars down the road. Not guaranteeing anything, but it's still a good sign. Anyway, T. Justice came up with a very, very good question. He currently drives a 2009 Charger SXT and he wants to replace it. And his question was, how do you compare the Maxima and the Charger? Very simply, I don't. They're two totally different vehicles, and I don't care which variation of Charger you want, whether it's the V6 you've got, the middle of the road RT, or an SRT, or let's just take the Hellcat out of it completely. I just wouldn't compare those cars, and this is why. The Maxima, front-wheel drive. The Charger, rear drive. The Maxima, CVT. The Charger, it has a geared transmission, and later models, like yours doesn't have it, but the later models have like a ridiculous amount of gears at this point, so it changes the way the car drives completely. The way I would look at it is this, and anybody asking a question of what should I buy, the first question I ask you is, what are you doing with the car? So in the case of a Charger or a Maxima, I'm thinking you probably have kids, you probably need to transport the mother-in-law around. So if you're looking for the most people carrying space without going to a dreaded minivan, then I would look at buying a car by the pound. So look at like the Impala, the Avalon, the Buick LaCrosse, fantastic choices for large cars that are somewhat fuel efficient, somewhat nice to drive, but you're not going to take them around roads like this or do anything where this car can do. Where if you're looking for something more performance oriented, I would look more to like getting a smaller car, maybe like a Cadillac ATS. If you can get the budget up to a CTS, there are plenty of Audis and Mercedes. I really like what Mercedes is doing recently. Even down to a CLA, yeah, it's a front wheel drive car, but the driving dynamics of that are probably a little bit more engaging than the Maxima because of the transmission, the whole thing, but a different kind of car. So I would look at, depending on what your priorities are. What are you looking for? That's the first question you got to ask yourself. What am I doing with the car? And then once you know, it's kind of like life. Once you know where you're going, once you know what the goal is, then you can pretty much answer any problem or answer any question you have. So with that, I'm going to say that we are going to work on the full episode of the Porsche Boxster GTS and get this to you shortly. But I do want to leave you with a very specific question, and it's more of an announcement. At the end of this month, end of July, we are very excited because, believe it or not, I have never, ever, ever driven on Road America. So we are not only going to go to Road America, we are going to Road America to drive a 640 horsepower car. So if you've been following the show for a while, you know what that means. It is the 2016 Cadillac CTS V. Very excited to drive this car. I don't know if I'm more excited to drive the CTS V, the 640 horsepower, or Road America. I'll have to come back to you on that one. But what does this mean to you? This means that you know who, Dave Leone, he's coming back on the show. He has already agreed to do one of his super deep tech dives on that car. You know how he turns it on its side and he goes through like the transmission bits and everything with you guys. So he is going to do that. I'm still trying to talk Bob Boniface into doing this. He'll come back, maybe do some design. I don't know if he's going to come. So let's put that off to the side. But if you have questions for Dave Leone and the CTS-V, or really anything they're working on at Cadillac, let us know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I will try to compile your questions and bring them to Dave and try to get him to answer as many as he has time for. So with that, we are going to get back to work, and I will say to you, bis später. Oh, and happy birthday, America.